Please like the video, subscribe, hit the bell, and check the descriptions for where you can find me, support me, and keep up to date with all news. And I do want to say that this video was a Patreon request. You can request videos to me if you are subscribed to the Patreon, especially if you are in that third tier. And this video request was about Currygom versus Eiichiro Oda. So in a nutshell, Kubera versus One Piece. So let's talk about it. It
don't matter though. Young nigga from Canada, brought from that bullshit and go like a matador.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I think it's interesting that somebody really wanted me to do this. I find them to be quite different in terms of how they go about it, but I suppose there is enough commonality and overlap, and plus there's still Eastern stories being told through graphic novel form, so I guess it's still possible to do. But how I'm going to do is I'm kind of going to break it down by world building, lore, plot / subplots, character, storytelling, artworks, and then like a special talent or trait, I suppose. And then I'll just kind of compare them, contrast. I don't think I'm interested in necessarily telling you who's better. I think you can make that decision for yourself. But I'll be honest with my opinion. I'm not going to run from that. So I'm going to start with world building, which you might be surprised to hear me say it's somewhat even. But I do think they both focus on different parts of the world building. Why do I say that? All things considered, even to this day, I think the world building in One Piece is done very well. The only thing that Oda could do a bit better, because I always tell people this and I don't know why it doesn't stick in their craw, but the characters and the people in your world, especially the ones who are not particularly important to the overall narrative, are part of the world and world building. Now, I think it's important to note that Oda, I have to close my window. Oda, his world interacts with the characters in meaningful ways. What do I mean by that? The world of One Piece is tumultuous from a weather standpoint. You have lightning, rain, islands of ice and fire, even though that was not caused naturally. And the seas are crazy. There's the calm belt and things of that nature. If Nami's not on a P's and Q's and keeping them where they need to be, they can sail into the calm belt and be eaten by sea kings. So the danger of the world itself actually interacts with them. If you are a Toriko fan, think Toriko with like the laser and meteor rain, and how if you're not careful, that stuff will actually kill you. The world itself engages with the characters, and that's quite vital to world building. So that's why I tend to be like, don't mention a place or mention a phenomenon if the characters won't really ever go through it, because you're just trying to artificially boost your world from a fantasy standpoint and make it seem like there's more to it than there really is, but you're not actually doing anything with it. So I think it's useless in that sense. But Currygom actually does that pretty well herself. However, I do think she gets the character portion of this right to a much better degree than Oda. Oda just has the chapters here and there when something big happens and you'll see the world react to it. I think it's serviceable. I think it works. But I would argue you need to do it a bit more often, and even when less fantastic things happen throughout the world of One Piece. But in the world of Kubera, the characters are always constantly moving, breathing, and doing things regardless of what the main character and main characters are doing. They have their own agencies. They're not NPCs. They're living their day-to-day lives in the areas and planets that they're on, and their cultures and the things that they do and care about seem to be different. And then when they're in times of crises, you see who they call upon and who is important in times of peace and who's important in times of chaos. And I think she captures that. So that's why to me it's even. I just think that they do certain things differently. You might be surprised to hear me say from the lore standpoint, I give the edge to Currygom. And the reason for that is actually pretty simple. One Piece has its cultures and different islands and different belief systems and whatnot, but it's not integral to the story. And if it is, it really tends to only have a meaningful impact on that arc for the moment that you need it to be impactful. Whereas the cultures, the magics, the area and terrain, and actually even magics that do not work in certain areas and certain planets in Altera and in Cali Bloom or whatever the case is, that stuff is integral to all those areas. And even I would argue you can kind of see the different cultures. Not even argue. You can see the different cultures and how they move and how they go about things. Humans, ancient humans, Suras, gods, primeval gods have their own ways of going about stuff, their own actual traditions and standards by which they abide by. So her lore is actually far more richer than Oda's is. And it's integral to the characters and the narrative, which gives it an additive bonus. It's not just kind of there to be there. It's there and it ties in with other things. So I actually give the lore. So when it comes to lore, I actually give the edge to Currygom. I think she does it a little bit better. When it comes to subplots and plots, how you tell your story is so important. I'm going to get into that later, but I do think the way that the lore, I know the lore in One Piece is interesting. There's a lot of engaging things there. It's just not done in what I would argue is a meaningful and in a good fashion. I don't like how it's done. You know how I always say, let's say, I use the example, let's say you could actually quantify what makes a joke funny. There's these 6 things, and if you do this, your joke will make everyone laugh. You could legitimately have a funny joke, objectively funny joke. But if you don't know how to actually sell that joke, the audience won't laugh. What if you're stuttering? What if you're nervous and your voice is cracking and they can't really hear you? You got to be able to use cadence in your speech, inflections and things of that nature in order to make the punchline hit. You feel what I'm saying? Plot and subplot. This one's interesting. Because I would argue this is a argument of complexity versus simplicity, and I don't know if there's a better version, but I will say this: I think when it comes to the central plot, One Piece is very simple, and as a result, it allows the subplots, to be a little richer. So some of the character things that maybe like Sanji was going through with his family, or like the Void Century and what is the One Piece and things like that, I think those subplots really hit. But the central plot is just this guy wants to become Pirate King. And for some people, that's not complex enough. It's a little too simple. With Currygom, the central plot, I actually can make a couple of cases for different things, but it's not as clear cut as One Piece. Just go do the thing, kind of do the thing. I want to be ninja president. No, it doesn't work that way. So I actually think that's a little more complex, and the subplots are a little bit more complex. Now, I think complexity is really good if the creative team knows how to handle it, and I think Currygom knows how to handle it. So it's probably more impressive to handle something that is more complex and hit on the execution than something that's simple but done really well. I could be wrong about that. I'd actually be interested in knowing what you guys think about the subplot and plot part if you're somebody who engages in both Kubera and One Piece. I'm a little undecided, but I'm going to give it, because of execution, I'm going to give a slight edge to Currygom. I would argue the character thing. This one is similar to the other thing, where I think now you have to decide what type of characters do you think are better for storytelling, dynamic or static characters. And I don't think there's inherently wrong, anything better or worse about either. It's all about how you execute it and what type of story are you telling. I often say Goku is a perfectly fine character to me, because I think for the story of Dragon Ball, how it's told, his simplicity works perfectly for that story. But maybe if he was the main character of Kubera, he could not stay the same. It wouldn't work in the same fashion. So I think this is for you have to decide this yourself, but I'll kind of go into it a little bit. I'll be very honest. Here's how it works for me. This is completely subjective. I enjoy One Piece characters more because they play up certain parts of their zaniness, wackiness. I like the over-the-topness of them. I like how they dress, and I think they're more fun in that sense because they're so simple. They're a lot more simple in comparison to Currygom's characters, who are ever changing and dynamic. So honestly, I love just talking about Crocodile or like a Kizaru or something like that. But intellectually, it's easy for me to admit that the Kubera characters are much better handled. They're more tightly written. They are simply the one. so to speak. Like, these characters are just phenomenal. And what I always say about Currygom that shocks me, she could have characters that are great, anywhere from a 7 to a 9. I'm gonna say 7 to a 10. When I give something, or a game, a book, a show, whatever, a 10, for me, it does not mean it's perfect. I see it as a masterpiece, or at the very least, what I perceive that it is you set out to do with, let's just say, this video game, you accomplished that. You wanted to make a really cool space first person shooter experience. Did you tick all those boxes? Yes. I'm not gonna knock you because the game wasn't funny. I don't think you were aiming for humor, so I'm not gonna knock you for humor, if you get what I'm saying. But yes, she'll have these characters like a 7 to a 10, and then throughout the events of the story, as something happens and they're changing or going through a character arc you didn't think they were going through, I call it limit breaking. She will limit break a character from a 10 and make him a 13 out of 10. And it's quite fascinating. As somebody who cares about characters the most in storytelling, Currygom's style of doing things truly resonates with me. And I guess when it comes to characters, we should talk about this then, how they handle their cast. I really think for a long time, Oda was really good at handling all the moving parts of One Piece, especially all the plethora of characters and the ever-expanding cast. I use the example often that Oda is the master of the sleigh and every character is a reindeer. And for a really long time, and even into the post-time skip, he is controlling that steer. Go left, go right, speed up, stop. You know, they were listening. But at some point, the reindeer started to steer Oda. He no longer has any control over that, in my honest opinion. Or he has to really pick and choose and chop up how it is. He maybe wants to supplement some characters with some backstory and information. Or he's got to go outside of the manga with something like a Viva card. So that's just kind of unfortunate in that sense. Currygom does the thing where she hops around a lot and focuses on a lot of her protagonists instead of constantly following one. I am a fan of that type of storytelling because it's consistent with a lot of narratives that I really like, and a lot of comic books that I've read, where sometimes this is the Batman section, this is the Superman section, or for let's say like Deadly Class, this is the Marcus arc, this is the Willie arc, this is the Saya arc, this is the Maria arc, this is the Maria and Marcus now they come together. So I'm used to that. And maybe Tower of God style of just bam, 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 focus on bam, only thing, everything, like, it's not moving me. And I do think that we've gotten a really big focus on Luffy, which is normal. As the series approaches endgame, the focus on the titular character is going to be higher, elevated. That's fine. But so maybe I guess with that, I guess I give the edge of Currygom, but I'm going to leave that one as undecided. You guys tell me what you think. Let's talk about storytelling. I think it's Currygom, and it's not even close, but I do want to make a distinction. If there is two mangaka that I think you cannot judge by literal conventional storytelling means, even as a manga and mangaka and Shonen Jump, I actually believe Oda and Araki fall into that category. I think you have to compare them at their peak and their best, and hold them to their standard of them when they really hit their stride. That's what I tend to do. It's hard for me to kind of apply contemporary modern writing conventions to Oda and something like Araki because they're so wacky and zany. And Oda does this off-screening stuff that's really weird that I've never really ever seen an author really do. Plus, he loves to kind of watering a seed off-screen and then showing us the full tree 900 chapters later, and it's gone through some stuff, but we don't ever have the literal meat and potatoes and minutia of it, so we have to do a lot of legwork and rationalization for him. So I do want to give him credit. I don't think Oda's a bad writer actually, though I do think that the quality of the story has been declining somewhat for quite some time. Currygom's is not. Hers is getting better and better, if I'm being quite honest with you. Though I'd argue the way that her story is being told and her writing conventions and the things that she implements in the literature is pretty conventional. Like I can compare her to like a Sanderson or a Tolkien or something like that. I think that works for her, but what I appreciate the most about Currygom is how she tells the story. It's not always about the words you use, the flowery language, or things of that nature. It's just like I told you with the joke thing. Do you know how to make me feel something? Can you draw an emotion out of me? And Currygom's really good at that, but she definitely stimulates the intellectual side of my brain and my needs when I'm engaging with literature. But I do still think Oda is extremely good at evoking emotion out of his readers too. So I want to give him credit where credit is due, but I got to give the storytelling / writing to Currygom. Artistry, I'm giving it to Oda, and this is actually not debatable for me. You might be one of those people where beauty is in the eye of the beholder. That's fine. If you think Kubera looks better from top to bottom, I'm not mad at that. I really resonate with the One Piece's art style. I love it, and I love how it's kind of a veil for the series, because the series is actually a lot. I'm not calling One Piece the darkest, most tear-jerking, melancholy series of all time, but this comedy and this art style actually acts as a veil to hide a lot of the darker stuff that happens in this story. I don't know if people really noticed that, to the point where I don't like when other artists are like Boichi or something is telling a One Piece story with their artistry. It doesn't work for me. I need it to be Eiichiro Oda. He has to be the one telling me this narrative, or it doesn't hit for me. Not to say that they're not talented artists. I just don't think their artistry works for One Piece. I really like how over the top, zany, wacky, completely deformed, skipping arm and leg day. Like, the characters of One Piece are crazy, but that's like a personal thing that resonates with me. I really like that. I love the Kubera artwork actually from the start, because I always thought it was pretty vibrant and expressive, but I just give Currygom credit because she's trying to improve her artwork, trying to improve her artistry, and she picks really good panels to put emphasis on when it matters and stuff, where she will elevate the quality of maybe of a panel mid-chapter, so you know that this character Ran is feeling this emotion intensely and heavily in this moment. So she's good at stuff like that, but I really don't think she can draw as well as Oda can. Just like generally, like, her artistry is probably the thing that I should say she had 10 categories for stats: writing, characters, world, lore building, blah blah blah. I think her art is her lowest stat. That's all I'm gonna say. So I guess let's kind of run through this one more time. So world building, I think I gave the edge to actually, was it Currygom? I forgot. I think I said Currygom, or maybe I said even. Lore I gave to Curry. Plot, subplot, Curry. Characters I think are kind of different. I'll let you guys decide. Storytelling, Curry. Artistry is Oda. Special skill, Oda's off-screen planting and off-screening stuff. That's his special skill. And conjunct backstories with Currygom. There'll be a little thing here if you want to go check out the video on conjunct backstories. I'm not going to explain it again in full detail, but long story short, I think the way that she explores the history of Kubera is done in a way that I don't think a lot of narratives do, and I think it's quite masterful. Let me know what you guys think about this video. I really think they're weird to compare. It's like when someone one time asked me to compare Miria to Araki, and I'm like, I don't know what to do with that. I could make it work, but I don't know what to do with that. They're just so different in their styles and tone and ambience of their story and things like that. Let me know what you guys think about this. Please like, subscribe, hit the bell, all that, and be safe. Goodbye. You already know I gotta show love to the Patreon gang. Yes, sir. Shout out to the Certified BAM lovers, my CBLs. Big love to the Priest of Fire. I greatly appreciate you guys' support, but especially shout out to my 5th Zen God. Shout out to Simi, Scobe, Revenant, Miles, Lucky Roo, Lazy Dragon, Chris, Johnny Rogers, Irene Sharda, Triss, David Langstaff, Childish Nujabes, Alan, AJ, Abdel, and 5:28 a.m. Your support is greatly appreciated, and thank you.